Section 10 of Völsungasaga. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Völsungasaga by Anonymous. Translated by Erik Magnusson and William Morris. Section 10, Chapter 33. Now so it is, that whoso heareth these tidings saith that no such an one as was Sigurd was left behind him in the world, nor ever was such a man brought forth because of all the worth of him, nor may his name ever minish by eld in the Dutch tongue, nor in all the northern lands, while the world standeth fast. The story tells that on a day, as Gudrun sat in her bower, she fell to saying, "Better was life in those days when I had Sigurd. He who is far above other men as gold is above iron, or the leek over other grass of the field, or the hart over other wild things. Until my brethren begrudged me such a man, the first and best of all men, and so they might not sleep or they had slain him. Huge clamour made Grani when he saw his master and lord sore wounded. And then I spoke to him, even as with a man, but he fell drooping down to the earth, for he knew that Sigurd was slain. Thereafter Gudrun gat her gone into the wild woods, and heard on all ways round about her the howling of wolves, and deemed death a merrier thing than life. Then she went till she came to the hall of King Alf, and sat there in Denmark with Thora, the daughter of Haukon, for 7 seasons, and abode with good welcome. And she set forth her needlework before her, and did thereinto many deeds and great, and fair plays after the fashion of those days, swords and burnies, and all the gear of kings, and the ship of King Sigmund sailing along the land. Yea, and they wrought there how they fought Sigar and Siggeir south in Fionn. Such was their disport. And now Gudrun was somewhat solaced of her grief. So Grimhild comes to hear where Gudrun has take up her abode. And she calls her sons to talk with her, and asks whether they will make atonement to Gudrun for her son and her husband, and said that it was but meet and right to do so. Then Gunnar spake, and said that he would atone for her sorrows with gold. So they sent for their friends, and array their horses, their helms, and their shields, and their burnies, and all their war gear. And their journey was furnished forth in the noblest wise, and no champion who was of the great men might abide at home. And their horses were clad in mail coats, and every knight of them had his helm done over with gold or with silver. Grimhild was of their company, for she said that their errand would never be brought fairly to pass if she sat at home. There were well 500 men, and noble men rode with them. There was Valdemar of Denmark, and Eamother, and Jarisleifr withal. So they went into the hall of King Alf, and there abode them the Longbeards and Franks and Saxons. They fared with all their war gear, and had over them red fur coats, even as the song says, burnies short cut, strong helms hammered, girt with good swords, red hair gleaming. They were fain to choose good gifts for their sister, and spake softly to her, but in none of them would she trow. Then Gunnar brought unto her a drink mingled with hurtful things, and this she must needs drink, and with the drinking thereof she had no more memory of their guilt against her. But in that drink was blended the might of the earth and the sea with the blood of her son, and in that horn were all letters cut and reddened with blood, as is said hereunder. On the horn's face were there all the kin of letters, cut aright and reddened. How should I read them rightly? The lingfish long of the land of Hading, wheat ears unshorn, and wild things inwards. In that beer were mingled many ills together, blood of all the wood, and brown burnt acorns, the black dew of the hearth, the god-doomed dead beasts inwards, and the swine's liver sodden, because all wrongs that deadens. And so now, when their hearts are brought anigh to each other, great cheer they made. Then came Grimhild to Gudrun, and spake,
All hail to thee, daughter! I give thee gold, and all kinds of good things to take to thee after thy father, dear-bought rings, and bed-gear of the maids of the Huns, the most courteous and well-dight of all women. And thus is thy husband atoned for. And thereafter shalt thou be given to Atli, the mighty king, and be mistress of all his might. Cast not all thy friends aside for one man's sake, but do according to our bidding.
Gudrun answers, Never will I wed Atli the king. Unseemly it is for us to get offspring betwixt us. Grimhild says,
Nourish not thy wrath. It shall be to thee as if Sigurd and Sigmund were alive, when thou hast borne sons.
Gudrun says, I cannot take my heart from thoughts of him, for he was the first of all men. Grimhild says,
So it is shapen, that thou must have this king, and none else.
Says Gudrun, Give not this man to me, for an evil thing shall come upon thy kin from him, and to his own sons shall he deal evil, and be rewarded with a grim revenge thereafter. Then waxed Grimhild fell at those words, and spake,
Do even as we bid thee, and take therefore great honour and our friendship, and the steads withal called Vinbjörg and Valbjörg.
And such might was in the words of her, that even so must it come to pass. Then Gudrun spake, Thus then must it needs befall, howsoever against the will of me, and for little joy shall it be, and for great grief. Then men leaped on their horses, and their women were set in wains. So they fared 4 days a riding, and other 4 a shipboard, and yet 4 more again by land and road, till at the last they came to a certain high-built hall. Then came to meet Gudrun many folk thronging, and an exceedingly goodly feast was there made, even as the word had gone between either kin, and it passed forth in most proud and stately wise. And at that feast drinks Atli his bridal with Gudrun. But never did her heart laugh on him, and little sweet and kind was their life together. Chapter 34. Now tells the tale that on a night King Atli woke from sleep, and spake to Gudrun. Me dreamed, said he, that thou didst thrust me through with a sword. Then Gudrun areaded the dream, and said that it betokened fire, whenas folk dreamed of iron. It befalls of thy pride belike, in that thou deemest thyself the first of men. Atli said, Moreover, I dreamed that here waxed 2 sorb-tree saplings, and fain I was that they should have no scathe of me. Then these were riven up by the roots, and reddened with blood, and borne to the bench, and I was bidden eat thereof. Yea, yet again I dreamed that 2 hawks flew from my hand hungry and unfed, and fared to hell. And meseemed their hearts were mingled with honey, and that I ate thereof. And then again I dreamed that 2 fair whelps lay before me, yelling aloud, and that the flesh of them I ate, though my will went not with the eating. Gudrun says, Nowise good are these dreams, yet shall they come to pass. Surely thy sons are nigh to death, and many heavy things shall fall upon us. Yet again I dreamed, said he, and methought I lay in a bath, and folk took counsel to slay me. Now these things wear away with time, but in no wise was their life together fond. Now falls Atli to thinking of where may be gotten that plenteous gold which Sigurd had owned, but King Gunnar and his brethren were lords thereof now. Atli was a great king and mighty, wise, and a lord of many men, and now he falls to counsel with his folk as to the ways of them. He wotted well that Gunnar and his brethren had more wealth than any others might have, and so he falls to the rede of sending men to them, and bidding them to a great feast